I'd like to welcome everybody to the March 23rd, 2022 Public Safety Committee meeting. Could we have roll call, please, Kelly?
Chairman Leckmiller,
Here.
Alderman Plufka,
Here.
Alderwoman O'Neill, Alderwoman Sims.
Here.
All members present.
Move on to approval of the agenda. Can we approve by acclamation? Anybody objecting to that? So it shall be. Move on to citizen comment. Anybody from the audience or online care to make a citizen comment?
No one in the gallery.
On the city administrator report, our city administrator is not here, so we'll move on to committee members and alderman report. I just have one real quick. I was wondering, Dan, if you might be able to come up and just fill us in on the most recent way we're going to communicate with citizens on the closure we got coming up for a week, the second weekend closure, and then the final closure for the bridge and all.
Okay. Yeah, we have, staff has weekly meetings with KCI and MoDOT for progress meetings for Manchester Road. And we did have one this Monday. So the latest and greatest, there's going to be the second weekend closure that's scheduled to start at 9 p.m. on Friday, April 22nd. And then that will extend through the weekend of April 23rd and 24th. And then they'll reopen on Monday, April 25th. And that'll actually have the roadway closed in its entirety at Manchester and Mary to do the sewer work that they're planning. So that's one closure. And then the second closure starts on May 2nd, 2022. That's the roadway closure at Manchester and Black Creek. So when the bridge needs to be demolished, they'll put barricades up on either side, and that'll effectively close that intersection of Hanley and Manchester. You won't be able to go west of Hanley. You'll still be able to get to businesses. You'll still be able to get to residents, say Salem, Lewis, any of those streets that come from Manchester. Ways we're going to communicate that would be through the website, through social media, so Nextdoor. I know Janet will be, communications manager will be posting on Twitter and different social media. But then we talked about it internally. We would do some sort of letter. I know it's going to be in the newsletters and things like that, but we'll do like just an individual letter and then have Public Works deliver it to the people that live on the side streets that are basically landlocked. So if you don't subscribe or look at the website, you'll at least get a piece of paper on your door that says, hey, May 2nd, this is going to be closed, and we'll put a web link and a phone number for more details. So.
And the website will have the new detours, especially for the bridge closure.
Correct. Yeah, they're still finalizing it. They being MoDOT. They're talking about using what is it? It would be Brentwood Boulevard, Hanley, Big Bend. North-south routes would go north up to 4064 and Eager. They don't want to take people through the residential areas, which we don't want them either. And then they'd be able to go down to the south, probably use Marshall or go even further south. Just depends on where you're trying to get to. And then the contractor, KCI, is supposed to notify the businesses, which I know they notified us whenever there was the first closure at Mary Avenue. We should be getting a letter, sometime before April 22nd for that next closure saying that, hey, starting at 9 p.m. And then there should be another letter from KCI with the bridge closure.
And on the weekend closure we got coming up on, I guess that's April 22nd as it stands right now, would we be able to use code red to at least prior to that let citizens know the challenges that are going to be that it's only open to local traffic?
Yeah, that I don't know. I don't know if police or fire. I don't get to use code red, but I do get the messages whenever there is a code red, like for heavy rains or something,
Right.
I know that, I believe fire sends that out.
Okay, good.
Okay.
All right, great. Thanks, Dan.
Okay,
Oh,
thanks.
David?
Can I ask a question on this
Yeah,
now?
sure.
Okay. So the second closure begins May 2nd. It runs till the end of August, right?
Correct. Yeah, that's for the bridge.
And will the businesses that are in that stretch between Hanley and Brentwood, those will have the option of remaining open?
Correct.
So when you were saying about communicating, you're talking about communicating that fact through the ways that you just described, social media and the other ways. Is there a preferred way? Because the bridge will be obviously completely out of commission, will people only be able to get there by coming from the west?
Yes, like if you wanted to go to Popeyes, I don't know of another way. I mean,
Right,
you don't want people shortcutting down the
right.
side streets.
And so my only other question is, so I appreciate, I mean, I know it'll be a challenge, but is emergency vehicles, should any of those businesses require emergency assistance, there's a route that's been figured out on how to get back there and, okay. Because I know some of the vehicles are bigger, obviously, and we're gonna have lane closures the rest of the way. So can I just ask a question about, the last question I've got is, while the bridge is down, the underpass, the pedestrian-friendly underpass, the timing of that is gonna be separate so that they're not being done at the same time?
They will be working on the underpass and the bridge simultaneously, so they will be working at the same time. What they'll do is a lane drop where they reduce, you got 4 lanes, 2 going east, 2 going west, so they're gonna basically take half of Manchester, I don't know which half they start with, but basically work on one half of Manchester with the pedestrian tunnel, the other half will be diverting traffic, so you'll still have 1 lane going east and west.
Okay.
And then when that half of the tunnel's done, then they'll flip traffic to the other side and do the reverse, till you're done.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank
They're
you.
trying to get them done in the same window so that when the bridge opens, the tunnel will be done and everything will kind of go back to normal.
Sounds good.
So, okay,
Thanks for the update. All right, move on to Alderman Plufka, your report.
So I've got 2 things. I had asked Bola earlier about a couple of things. The first one is I wanted the committee to ask our police and fire departments to provide us sometime this summer of their relative plans to keep our residents safe from natural disasters and criminal activity within the Brentwood bound footprint once that comes online, what their plans are for that. These 60 acres, in my opinion, will no doubt pose challenges for fire, EMS, and police personnel. And I believe we should start talking about those departments and what they're gonna need in terms of equipment, as well as how they think, what their plan is gonna be for not only the areas that are being left, the trail areas, but also for the playground and the building that we're making and the other features of the Brentwood bound footprint. Bola did get back to me, and although she can't be here today, she said that she had asked the chiefs and the director of Parks and Recreation to do those things. I just wanted to reiterate that. I'm really looking forward to seeing what those reports have to say, whether we see them in May or June, so that we can actually talk about and discuss what you guys expect the challenges are gonna be to our residents and public safety generally, in an area that's gonna be this, wonderful addition to the city of Brentwood, but it's no doubt gonna have challenges for both departments. So that was one, and that she already said that she's already got that in the works, so I don't need to do anything there at this point. And then the other thing is ECDC. We have not reviewed our relationship with ECDC since I was chairman, and that was in 2019. We go year to year, and I believe we are automatically re-upped with ECDC. There are 8 communities within ECDC. At least one of them is very publicly having financial problems, which is Shrewsbury. There are others that have been complaining too because of the effects of COVID. Because we are a consortium that relies on the members to make contributions to make the thing financially viable, I would like to ask that we put on the agenda, and that this committee vote to put on the agenda at some point in the next several months, some sort of a review, at least a report. Our city administrator sits on the board of directors of ECDC, and asking her at the very least to report to us how that is going, whether or not all of the constituent communities are still all in, whether, what our expected liabilities are gonna be, and as a further discussion, what other options. Every time we do this, it seems like we've got different options. The county option seems to be growing in terms of its capabilities and equipment, and everything else, and there's other dispatch services that are out there. I just want to make sure that every once in a while, at least, we evaluate our relationship with ECDC, and if we stay with them, fine. But I'd like us to at least take a look at it and see whether or not that's the best option for the city of Brentwood. So I would make a motion, I guess, that the committee asked to be put on the agenda, and I don't know when it, I mean, I would say, let's just say June, that we have a conversation at least with regard to East Central dispatch and you know, just about it and our relationship to it, basically. Thank you.
Okay. Any discussion? I just have one question. Could I ask of Chief Cottrell just a question regarding ECDC? Because I think if this falls in your department, aren't they making or have we made an investment in the new CAD system already recently?
They are currently in process of upgrading their CAD. Believe to the tune of about $2.4 million, I believe. The current CAD is a 20-year-old system, and we have issues every day. So, yes, they are making that investment right now.
And is there a cost to us for that?
The bulk of the cost came from a fund balance that East Central had. There is additional cost, but I believe it's around $300,000 that's divided up among the 7 remaining cities now that Shrewsbury's announced that they are leaving.
I didn't know that either. I have a question about that. Does that mean that there's going to be an unpaid balance that's going to be picked up by the remaining 7 communities, or do you know?
Well, the budget will be divided up amongst the remaining communities. I had a committee meeting this week. It was announced in that committee meeting that the director of East Central is reworking his budget to try and find cuts to reduce the cost. He indicated to us that he has a slightly less than 1% reduction in his budget going into next year due to cuts that he's proposing to the board.
Not including the loss of Shrewsbury.
It does include the loss of Shrewsbury.
Oh, okay.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
And when would that be? When will they?
They are a July 1 budget year.
So will they meet in June, or when will they meet to do that?
Their last meeting was canceled for March, so I assume they have an April meeting, the directors do.
Thank you. Anybody else? So I guess just to reiterate what Alderman Plewka is requesting, that, I guess, the June meeting?
Yeah, I mean, I was just trying to do it in such a way that we would, that Bull would have something to report, you know, she would know about their budget going forward. I didn't know it was, I knew it was July 1st, but I didn't know when their budget got adopted. I saw that the March meeting had been canceled. So anytime between, it doesn't, June isn't magical or anything, anytime between now and July's meeting.
Or we can even discuss it the next meeting when she's here.
That'd be great.
If you want
Yep, that'd be great.
some more direction. All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Thank you, that's all I had.
Alderwoman O'Neill.
I have a question, and it probably could be taken up later under department reports. It's for Chief Speece and the police. For a while, there was great forward movement towards getting something set up for a canine addition to your department. Haven't heard about that in months. So is it still possible? Is it in the works? Is the paperwork finished? What's happening with that?
Well, COVID was the biggest reason it stalled. We had a 3-person board that was going to have actually raise money and try and get the program off the ground. 2 of them backed out on us. So we have not moved forward since then. It's really been stalled for as long as COVID's been here.
So are you looking for people to replace those who left, or is it just in a holding pattern, or are we picking it up? Or
Yeah, basically it's at a holding pattern at this point. We still discuss it. Angie and I discuss it. We still believe there's value to it. The logistics of it, really, it's about money. It's raising the money to be able to get there.
I could see it as a great addition for Brentwood Bound to have the dog down in the park.
Yes, ma'am. I would think it would be too.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Alderwoman Sims?
No report.
All right. Move on to department reports. We've got Public Works Department. Dan?
One of them in here, I believe we already talked about, so it was about Manchester Road. I don't know if you had any other questions on that. I had prepared these reports last month, but then I know the meeting was canceled, but we were asked to look at two different areas with the traffic data collectors. Eulalie Avenue, if you recall, we had actually looked at this block between Helen and Dorothy. We ran data. We did not recommend putting in a speed cushion because the data didn't support it. So then we were asked to run it a second time to see if maybe the data had changed our mind and see if, maybe it would be supported. So I tried to include some of the reports that I run in here. I didn't include the raw data because it's literally thousands of data points. But I tried to include the ones that I usually use for evaluations of whether we consider them or not. So in your packet, within the memo, I tried to summarize as best I could, looking at the two different collection periods. So what is it here? We've got January 18th, 2022 through January 31st, 2022. That was the second time we ran data. The first time was back July 9th through July 22nd of 2021. So I tried to run it the same number of days. I put it in the exact same location, had it turned the exact same way, calibrated. Everything that I could try to hold constant, I did. And then whenever you look at the actual data during that period, I put it in a table to kind of summarize the two different data sets. That was like the last page, but the speed limit, is posted 20 miles per hour. The 85th percentile speed did not change. It's still 24 miles per hour. So it means 85% of the cars are doing 24 miles per hour or less. 50th percentile speed is 20. That's still the same. The average speed went from 20.4 miles per hour to 20.6. So it's a very insignificant change. Max speed, someone was able to do 43 miles per hour in that stretch. And then before they did 40, so that's a little worse. The minimum speed stayed at 12. Number of vehicles, total vehicle counts was 5,193 back in July of 21, and then 5,214 in the time period of January 2022. So that shows me that there's really no shortcutting or changes there to constant, amount of traffic flowing day to day. And then looking at the ADT, which is the average daily traffic, we're only seeing, 374 cars a day in the original data collection set, and 382 vehicles per day in the January 2022. So less than 400 vehicles a day is really low amount of number, or low value. Put it in perspective, Rosalie, when we did the speed cushions, we were seeing over 1,000 vehicles a day there. Pine Avenue, over 1,000 vehicles a day. Less than 400 is a very, very small number. And then we even looked at the ADT Saturday, Sunday. It's roughly the same number, 370 versus 372 vehicles per day. That shows me that it's probably all residential. They're not shortcutting from, Maplewood and driving down Eulalie, because you would see a higher number during the work week and it should drop on the weekend. And I don't see that. And then the day of the week where you're most likely to encounter someone speeding, it changed. It went from Saturday back in 2021, and then it was on the Thursday in 2022. But the percent violators, you're looking at less than 2%. It was 0.8 back in 21 and 1.3% in 2022. And by that I mean folks that are doing, I set the threshold in the software at 30 miles per hour. So the data gets filtered and it shows me the number of vehicles and the percentages that are doing 30 or greater. Because I'm like, well, you shouldn't be doing more than, 10 over. You shouldn't do anything over. But if you were to go over, I actually had it sorted into bins. And those are that's the pie chart. So that's breaking it into 5 mile per hour increments, just because to me it helps me visualize. If I can see, it's like, well, how are these people traveling through here? And you can see from the pie chart, most everybody, like the other summary little table shows, more than 85-90% of the cars are doing the right thing. It's this very small wedges, this 1.2% or so that's doing 30 to 34 or 35 to 39. And then there's only one data point that was over 40. So, long story short, that one, I still can't see a significant change that supports putting in a, a $4,000 speed cushion to slow down 10 cars. It just doesn't seem feasible.
Well, thanks for taking a second look at it, Dan.
Yep.
I know that takes a lot of time on your part.
Yeah, I just, if it changes, it changes.
I feel like I get a lot of calls about slow children signs or the solar panels.
Yeah, we have those radar feedback signs, if that's what you mean.
Yeah, I mean, I just,
And police have the mobile trailer where it will post your speed limit.
like, all I know, I mean, I understand facts and data, logic and provable things.
Right.
These are the things people call me about, and I mean, might we consider something short of a speed hump?
Yeah, that's what we originally did on Pine. We put the, flashing radar-enabled speed limit sign. That was only for westbound traffic, that block between High School and Brentwood Boulevard. And that one's the next one to talk about, because I know that there was, some people said, well, this is dumb, it doesn't work, why do you have these in here? You need to remove them. But when I ran the second set of data for Pine Avenue, the data does show that it has reduced the speeding condition. Not everybody is doing the correct speed limit. There's still some speeders. I'm not gonna say it's 100% foolproof solution. There is none. But what it does do, that one I did another table, and I won't read through the whole thing. That one, to me, it was the pie charts that kind of told me if you take nothing else away. I did a before condition, which was the 3D pie. So what that's showing is that the data collected shows 2011 vehicles out of 12,419 total vehicles were doing 30 miles per hour or greater, because that's opposed to 20. So of that 2011 vehicles that were, say, doing 30 or more, that represents 16.2%. And then you can see from the little colored wedges how many, were going different bins, those 5 mile per hour increments. And then the after shows you only had 322 vehicles out of 9,688 total vehicles. So that's only 3.3% that's going 30 or greater. So again, if you flip them around, you had 16.2%, which was over 2,000 vehicles, versus you had 322 vehicles, which is only 3.3%. It's like it really reduced it down, that everybody's doing less than 30 for the most part. So I would say they're successful. I mean, granted, there's somebody that still was able to do over 50 between the cushions, but they were heading towards the traffic light, and I'm sure they were trying to catch the light at Brentwood Boulevard, and,
I'm just wondering where all those extra cars went on the second.
Well,
line
that
down.
is, I looked at that too, and I'm like, well, that's unusual, because I ran it same number of days and everything, and tried to, look at it. The only thing I could think is that they probably got tired of driving on this, because they were slowed down and maybe moved over to Lawn or one of the other east-west avenues.
Sonny, I mean, do you want,
I mean, what would be, I mean, how expensive are those? I'm calling them solar, what you've just,
They're in the thousands. I want to say we bought it for like 3,000. I can look, see if there's anything cheaper out there. I don't think you can get them cheaper than, say, like 2,000, just because of supply chain, and, of course, they have computer chips, and I don't know what the lead time is, but we can look at it, see what the,
yeah, just if you could evaluate something, I mean, I hear the data
Right.
about if might there be something,
because they have one extra unit. I thought, well, we could always make that a floater, all you need is a post and sunlight, because that's going to restore the battery.
but even if you had a floater, I mean, that just to see, I mean, I get phone calls about.
You're losing me here, that if the police department, are you talking about putting the solar thing up that shows what your speed is?
yeah,
We have, like, there's a sign on Rosalie, like near the Lee Wind Trail. As you're cresting down that slope heading towards Litzinger, it's telling you your speed limit, and people were,
Can't be moved to Eulalie? It's not permanent, is it?
we had one on Rosalie that we no longer need, that we picked up and put back in public works, so it could be moved somewhere else if there's a need.
These are more effective when they're not there forever. So if you move them around, a couple weeks here and,
Right.
on one side of the hill 1 week and the other side of the hill the other week or something, it seems to me that we ought to try something like that if we have it in-house before we go buy something new.
Well, I didn't, I mean, my question, I didn't realize you had one.
Yeah, we have one spare. So really all we would need to do is, you would need to tell us a location. So you would say the whatever 100 block of a particular street. And then we would call in locates because I have to put a post in the ground. I can't just drive a post not knowing the utilities. But once we know where the utilities are and they're clear, it's just a square 2-inch by 2-inch post and the thing gets mounted on it. And I need obviously sunlight, but we can rotate the panel. I mean, most everywhere, unless you're directly under a tree, you can get enough sunlight.
You want to make a motion to direct staff to go ahead and put in one of those on Eulalie?
What he said, yes.
I'll second that.
Which
All in
area of
favor, say
Eulalie?
aye. Aye. Okay.
No, I mean, where
For
you-
clarification.
Perhaps like where you, the spot you had been using, I mean, I don't have all of Eulalie committed to, memory, but perhaps where you thought perhaps there might be the most escalation of speed.
Yeah, I don't know if the police have any idea if there is any speed on.
Yeah, I mean, I would just sort of defer to your expertise.
Because I knew that one block we just talked about, it's like, well, there's really not a need there, basically from Dorothy to Helen. There might be like closer to the fire station, that stretch of Eulalie, only because you have a traffic light and I can see people trying to, get through that intersection quicker than normal.
I don't know if I need to refine my motion, but I kind of defer to your expertise on
Yeah, I'll look, because the other thing I look for is, as far as trees and obstacles.
optimized. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, well,
Okay, so Eulalie.
Anything else in your report, Dan?
The one thing that's not on here, which I'll just briefly update, the lights at York Village, I know we had received a list of 3 other locations. Those 3 locations are, I just gotta find the email.
Are we still doing this?
Yeah, it's 9 Middlesex, 70 York, and then the north side of Northcote at the intersection of Sussex, which is technically MoDOT property. I reached out to TWM, they're gonna give me a cost proposal because we did 5 easements. They reminded me we did the 2 at York Hills Drive, which there's 2 lights in there. The other 3 locations that they completed easements on were 54 York, 18 York, and 9 York. So we've already expended our budget with them, and then they'll tell me how much it is, and I can either bring it back here to Public Works or Ways and Means, whatever makes sense.
But I thought one of those was being replaced. I thought that one of those locations where they got that was the one that was being moved to the MoDOT property.
Yeah, the MoDOT property, they never drafted anything up around it because we couldn't figure out if that was truly MoDOT's, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Because when MoDOT widened the interstate, they weren't sure if they took it to the center line of Northcote or they only took it to the edge. The way the original plat was developed back in 1926 or somewhere in the 20s was it was to the center line of the road, but those homes were demoed and TWM wasn't sure where the terminus was.
Okay.
But it shouldn't be too bad. I looked at the original proposal, it was $1,420 to develop each of those 5 sites. So,
Did that include the hard wiring, or was that for solar?
no, that was strictly for the easement. We have the lights, we have the wiring. The only thing I would need to do with Public Works is buy the sonotubes, the forms. And then we still have the template to put in the concrete. So all the construction parts should go quickly. It's just the easements. We'll have to develop something and then it gets, it doesn't necessarily have to be recorded for us to do the work. I just need a signature and then we'll go record it.
The trustees, I got an email from them too, and they said that they had the 3 locations that they provided to you, and
Right.
there we go. Okay.
Yep.
Those are the remaining 3.
Yeah, because MoDOT will have to still work with them. These other 2 are a lot easier because you're just dealing with an individual,
Right.
so.
And you've got easements, or they've got easements, I thought, signed.
If they have, I don't have a copy of it, so I'll have to reach out to the trustees. Because, we developed an easement document, we gave it to the trustees. They filled out theirs for York Hills.
I've already taken too much of the meeting with this. Let me get back to you offline.
Okay, that's fine.
I thought I had this worked out with them in an email I saw today, but maybe I'm wrong. So I'll communicate with you.
Okay, yeah, and like I said, it's not like before where we're missing the wiring. We have all the harnesses, the batteries, everything's in
Right.
storage.
Right.
So whenever the weather breaks, you could probably do those.
I did have one question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So with Gonzalez, I I have a resident on Cricket who says that they had sent stuff into Gonzalez for the, to be added to the list. Should I advise them, should they communicate with Gonzalez directly about?
They can just contact me. We actually, it was Monday, we received a report from Gonzalez that I'm gonna circulate internally, and then it's got 217 data points or areas of concern. Of those 217, roughly 60% were related to people that had downspouts and gutters that drain it
Yeah, that's
onto the
what this
sidewalk
is.
and street.
Yep. So can I just advise them to
They can
get
call
ahold of
me.
you by email? Okay.
Yep.
Thank you, Dan.
Yeah, either email or call. We'll
Perfect. That's
tell 'em.
great. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Good, Dan, thank you. Oh, wait a minute, Dan.
Yeah, speaking of lights, that made me think of it. The light that is currently resting on the berm.
Oh, yeah, and Strassner.
Yes, Rossner. What do you know?
Recording stopped.
Do you know the story on that, or what it's CTA?
Recording in progress.
Maybe.
All I know is one of my trash guys told me, hey, you need to come take a look at this. I think someone hit one of our lights. So I've got pictures of it. I sent it to Reinhold Electric to get an estimate. I'm gonna send it to another electrician as well. But I know that that light can't be reutilized. It's not like they were traveling down the road and they swerved and hit it, because if you look at the angle, it's actually perpendicular to the direction of traffic. So I don't know if it was when Ameren or someone was doing work there.
Yes.
I sent it to Ameren.
Come forward. I mean, is
No, you would think, right? No one's come forward. I sent it to him and I said,
Company
I'm
or
not blaming
whoever
you,
was
but,
Up the street.
I mean, we all have insurance here, fellas. I mean,
Right.
So, but so you're working through. I mean, I won't hold you to it, but what's the?
I know that it tripped the breaker too, because none of the 5 works now. Because I've gone out there at night and I'm like, well, that's great. Until I rewire that one, I won't know if it did damage to the others, because it pulled it with enough force that the whole base is toppled and you have to put a new
Yeah.
concrete base. And when the base toppled, it pulled tension on the other wires to the lights on either side of it. So I'm like, this whole thing is scrapped. I know when we had to put one on a Litzinger, like near McGrath, that one was a total bust, but the foundation was still good. They hit it and they sheared the aluminum, and that was like $3,000 for a light back in, I think, 2018. So this, I'm assuming, is probably, $3,500 to $4,500 just for the light. I know I gave him the model number because it's a Sternberg, and he's like, I don't think that model's made anymore. I was like, well, I don't really care if you can get something similar. It needs to be that verdigris and, 13 foot tall and pretty similar. So hopefully, he said he would have it by Friday, the person that I talked to. So I should have at least one quote, and then I'll work on a second.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Because I wanted to see what that cost was to see whether we turn it into insurance or not. If it's below our deductible, then I wouldn't mess with it. I'd pay for it out of my budget. But if it's too exorbitant.
There's some brickwork that needs to be done. I mean, to my.
Yeah, it hit with enough force it actually lifted the brick
Yeah.
up too. It didn't break the curb, but it did enough destruction. I'm well aware it had to be a big truck. It couldn't have been like my Nissan Altima. And I didn't see like any like parts anywhere either. When I first went out there, like if someone hit it, you would think there'd be a bumper or broken glass or something. But
All right, you got it? All
Yep.
right,
that's it.
thank you, Dan.
Thanks.
Move on to the police department. Chief Spees. Report for us.
Thank you, sir. To start with, we'd like to recognize Dan and his group we really appreciate his speed humps. Angie and I have not gotten a speed complaint on either street they've been in since they've gone in. That's very unusual, especially on Pine. So they've been a successful program. And I know they're kind of painful for his group, so thank you, Dan. With regard to crime, we missed the last meeting due to the inclement weather. So the crime report is over the last 4 weeks. We've had a slight uptick in vehicle-related crime. Not so much stolen autos, although we did have one warm-up steal that occurred in late February. But we've had cars that have been hit, which is common here in Brentwood. But our retail areas, even one here on our community center lot, cars on parking lots have been targeted regularly, as they usually are here. So as part of that, we had a burglary that occurred in March 15th on Lawn. The people apparently left their garage door open at night. This was a nighttime crew doing nighttime crime, but they saw a crime of opportunity and actually went into the garage and stole some stuff out of the garage, tried to get their car. So that is also the same pattern we're seeing at night. If they see other opportunity, they take it, whether it be an open garage or potentially a robbery, whatever it may be. We had the Meridian parking lot was hit twice within 3 days. So we had additional patrols put there, but that parking lot that's down below is an easy target for them. It's dark, away from the streets, nobody can see them. And they're targeting, which is a new thing for them to do, they're targeting people that come to work or overnight shift workers. That's what they're looking for there. So we had a catalytic converter theft. We only had one in these entire 4 weeks, even though this crime continues to occur throughout the St. Louis area. 8627 Eulalie, there was a vehicle, a catalytic converter removed and taken. So, but that was the only one during this period that we had. Our flock camera program, just to give you a quick update on that, at this point, as you know, it went into effect in late 2021. We're up to 6 cameras operating at this point. Just as an example, we've had 63 felony vehicles located in the last 30 days by the flock cameras. Wow. The officers can dial in on what they want notified on in their vehicles. Most of our officers are hitting on felony cases. We've had numerous good cases that have come from our officers locating the wanted vehicle. Everything from good drug cases to cars that have fled other law enforcement agencies. We also had a car that was wanted for a homicide outside of our jurisdiction, all coming through these flock cameras that are in Brentwood that our officers are able to locate. So at this point, it appears that the flock cameras are going to be a nice assistance to us. Many of the activations are happening at night. At night, those are often stolen cars, which is exactly what we're looking for on a night watch. So our busiest camera is the one on Eager Road, which makes sense as folks are coming off of 64 and 170. That camera's been our most successful at this point. Anybody have any questions with regard to that flock camera program? Really gives us a good shot at trying to control and locate people that are in the business of doing this kind of, especially car-related crime. One note on the police department staffing, my anniversary was March 12th, for my 4th year. We're now at full staff for the first time in 4 years that I've been here. Retirements, whatever, long-term illnesses. So it's really nice to have a full contingent of police officers when we go in first time. The wellness program that the Board of Aldermen approved for us has kicked off. It took us a couple months to get it up and rolling here. Right now, Major Hawkins has blocked off officers by birthday to go through the program. So all of us have begun the process of the required mental health review is the only required piece of our mandatory piece of the program. But there have been a lot of officers that have opted into the backside of that, different parts of that program that we've explained to you. So that's functioning now, and I think it's going to be a successful program similar to what our fire department has. The board also authorized an additional position for us last year, which has really turned out to be a blessing for us. Alex Wilcox is our officer that's doing it. Alex has really taken on the role of a liaison between our businesses, which we really didn't have as a strength since I've been here. He's been able to really, he's got good relationships with the retail hotels, the YMCAs of the world. He set up meetings. We're in the process of having meetings with all of those entities. So we're bringing multiple restaurants. We had the YMCA in last week, hotels, and then of course the major retail areas. Bringing them in, we're talking about best practice, trying to strengthen our relationship with them, and we're trying to create a process of preventative measures for retail theft. It is rampant in the world today. I don't know how much any of you follow this, but we have to be very careful if our brick and mortar stores are at risk here. There's people just walking in, stealing, and walking out, and it's pretty amazing. the world has become so gun shy to approach people that they're just physically letting them walk out of their stores with carts full of things. So this is there's multiple things that are affecting this and why it's become so prolific in the world. Part of it is there's no bark on the back. There's nothing on the back side of it, even if you're arrested, typically. Much of a bite, there's not much there. They know that, so they continue to do it. So we're working with our retail areas to try and create a kind of a bubble around them if we can that prevents those thefts before they happen. One of the things that Alex has done well is he's developed a frequent flyer list of people who, in his liaisons with the other law enforcement agencies around us, there's a pretty defined group of people that are hitting us on a very regular basis. There's a lot more theft out there that comes in on the Metrolink and other places. But there are defined groups that are moving around, and Alex has them identified, and many of them are out wanted at this point. And that's one of the things that we have challenged him to do, is make sure that we keep that we review video, that we look at these, get information from our stores, and then if we have people that are doing this on a regular basis, that we're laser focused on trying to intercept them. So that's going on now. I believe that's all I had. If there was anyone that has a question, I'd be happy to answer it for you.
I just have one, Chief.
Yes, sir.
With the closure, the weekend closure we had, and this weekend closure that we're gonna have on the 22nd, you had officers posted at the first one. Are you gonna have them at the second one?
Yes, we will. We've been involved with Dan with the review of what they're doing more thoroughly. There's going to be much better signage this time, but we will have a couple of officers detailed to it.
Okay, and are they ones that are on their shift that you use? Or?
We're still looking at it. We prefer not to do it on overtime if we don't have to. So we'll take a look at the staffing levels, but we will have somebody out there on Saturday and Sunday.
Okay, thank you.
It's that closing and going forward that's going to be the biggest challenge for us.
Yeah, I think so. All right, any other
Thank you.
questions? Thank you, Chief. Move on to Fire Department. Chief Cottrell.
Right, thank you. I will start, try and answer a couple questions that have been asked already tonight. So the fire department's plan for the road closure on Manchester Road, we've communicated with our area partners. We've also communicated with East Central Dispatch. We're sharing the same documents with them on a regular basis. Brentwood specific, we are adding an engine to any reports of building fires in Brentwood anywhere in town due to Maplewood being cut off. And they're so close to us. They're usually second or third arriving company. This also affects, I think I've said this at a prior meeting, Abbott Ambulance response to other communities, such as Rock Hill. That's their main thoroughfare. So we're very concerned about Abbott responding through residential streets, trying to get to Rock Hill. So we are communicating with them as well to avoid that. So that's a little beyond our control, but we're being very clear with our communication and our request.
You say adding an engine, what does that mean?
Just adding an additional piece of fire apparatus to the response. Okay. So we have 5 engines and 2 ladder trucks respond for a report of a building fire. We're adding, so we'll be at 6 engines and 2 ladder trucks.
Okay, thanks.
Just in case there's any delays, we're adding that support. So I just wanted to be clear on that. Just to highlight my provided report, we continue to deal with COVID. We continue to provide tests on employees who have an exemption. We did hire a new employee, believe just this week in another department that has an exemption due to medical reasonings. So again, I believe we're at 6 that we test on a weekly basis, and of course any others that have symptoms. So we continue to offer that. We are now seeing medical supplies in shortage, specific IV fluids, and some ancillary supplies related to IV therapy. One of our primary vendor was at the station today and met with the lieutenant just to develop a plan. We order so few in the grand scheme that we're going to be dependent on SSM or Mercy if it gets to that. I'm not calling them specific partners, but the hospital systems will have to be helping us. So we're stable right now, but we fear that that's coming. Of course, that raises the cost as well. In our training update, crews continue to work well with our regional partners. Next week's an interesting opportunity. We've been working on trench rescues the last few years. This year we're expanding it. We will have a minimum of 6 additional trench rescue technician level people certified. So again, just adding to the number of our employees and their capabilities. The ISO note, I had that in February, and I just wanted to expand on that a little bit in this month's report. We have received our packet from ISO. We are preparing documents now. We have a July meeting to meet with them. We anticipate receiving a rating by the end of the calendar year of this year. That was the timing that happened 5 years ago. We've made several improvements, so we anticipate to receive an improved rating. We're very, very excited about that opportunity. We did extend a conditional offer to an individual for our fire marshal position, so we're hopefully 2, maybe 3 weeks away from getting that person on board. It's going to be a huge help to the city, huge help to our department. We have a priority list for them to get started on. This next item is a request a plea to all the citizens, but a request to all the aldermen. We are starting a campaign to try and educate our residents to stop calling the fire station for emergencies. This morning at 12:34 this morning, we had an individual call the firehouse who believed their house was on fire. It was not. However, they called the firehouse. They're putting their lives at risk by doing this. I have another story that I just can't tell publicly, that they're putting their lives at risk. I don't know how else to say it. And we have an article coming out in the spring newsletter for the city. We would like to get in front of your residents at your ward meetings, start there, and look for other opportunities to plead our case with them. Please utilize 911. People falling and lying in their floor for 10 hours and them not calling 911 because they don't want to bother someone. We just want to educate. So that's my plea on that report. I've made changes to our monthly performance measures. Attached to this report, we're just trying to tell our story in a transparent, perhaps more accurate way than what we've done in the past. We've added a few columns, or rows, excuse me, and some of the percentages are just being reported in a different light. So percentage of EMS calls, for example. Previously, it was reported percentage of EMS calls where the patient was not transported. I'm trying to report what we are doing. So we are transporting that percentage of the time. In addition, we're excluding calls where there is no patient, where the ambulance responds. So could be a fire call, could be they were canceled en route by another ambulance. So just trying to be a little bit more transparent on those numbers. And then at the very bottom, under response times, this is a big one, and this is a national standard that we're trying to be compliant with. Total response time. So this is the time someone calls 911, it's answered, the clock starts. So we have no control over time processing. The call processing time. So the questions going back and forth between the operator and the caller, that's time where an emergency is occurring that we're not aware of. So we need to track that. We need to see, is there major deficiency in that component? Because we can control how fast we get on the equipment. We can control how quickly we get to the scene. We do that very well. we're trying to track that front end time. So I just wanted to share that information with you. If you have questions, please let me know.
Does that come into play with that ISO number?
ISO, it can on our fires. So fortunately, we don't have a lot of fires, and fortunately, our response time to the fires that we have has been very, very good. But yes, it could affect us on our fire response.
Questions for our chief?
Two final pieces has to do with ambulance billing, and I'll be done.
Yeah.
I attached the letter for, this is the Missouri GEMT Medicaid reimbursement that we participate in. The intergovernmental transfer has already happened with the state of Missouri, so Brentwood transferred $28,664 to the state of Missouri, and in May, we are due $82,497. What's important about these numbers? This captures the full time of COVID when our call volume was at its lowest. We have increased our call volume since, and we fully anticipate increased revenue moving forward. The last item I'll report at the next board meeting, or committee meeting, excuse me.
On that reimbursement, so walk me through the mechanics. We have to pay it, and then we get reimbursed the full amount, so we net the 53,000?
That is correct. That is correct.
All right. Any questions for the chief?
Thank you.
Thank you. Move on to consent agenda. We just have the minutes. Can we have a motion to approve the consent agenda if there's no changes? Favor say aye.
Aye.
Move on to old business. Got golf carts. We kind of started this last year, and over the winter months, I thought everybody would put their golf carts away, and they're starting to warm them up. So here we go. Since we really doesn't have any ordinance that speaks to golf carts usage, I think it's something we need to take up, and I think the committee agreed back last year.
So
Chief, what do you got?
I asked Major Hawkins to take a look at other cities and their ordinances as they kind of dictate what they can do and not do with a golf cart in their communities. So Angie's going to give you a briefing. They're not all the same. There's some nuanced differences in each of the laws. If we move forward to try and do something with an ordinance here in Brentwood, I think it would be a good idea for, as much as I don't like more meetings, is to sit down and talk about what the good things are that she'll tell you, and then maybe try and give them back to you all, and you can make your decision.
Okay, thank you.
I will try not to bore you to death with this. The Missouri definition of a golf, I'm just kidding.
I'm way ahead of you. I've read the Federal Code of Regulations. I'm ready to talk about
Yes.
vehicles.
So yeah, low-speed vehicles and golf carts, essentially one and the same. So when you read one, essentially, a low-speed vehicle is a golf cart. All golf carts are low-speed vehicles is what I'm trying to say. Basically, in the state of Missouri, they've outlined some things that say, hey, you can't drive a golf cart on any county state highway that has speed limit more than 40 miles an hour. They get really, really specific too with where you can cross those particular roads that do have that high of a speed limit. You can only cross from roads that are 45 miles per hour, 45 miles per hour or less at a perpendicular angle, et cetera, et cetera. I will not bore you with that kind of stuff. In terms of what the governing body of a city may do to regulate golf carts, it is very, very largely up to the city itself. If you look through some of the examples, every city that has an ordinance for the golf carts is completely different than the next. And it's like, oh, wow, I guess we really can do what we'd like to do. Some of them, I think, had some really, some of them thought their way through that, I think, a little bit more than others, from my personal opinion. I think having lights on a golf cart is a really wise idea. I think increasing visibility for low-speed vehicles is probably one of the top safety things that maybe to consider in this regard. But everywhere says it has to be licensed with the state. Everywhere says you have to be 16 or older with a valid driver's license to drive it, and it has to be insured. So aside from those three items and the fact that you can't legally drive it like down Brentwood Boulevard or Manchester, it's completely up to the governing body to decide, hey, do we want them to put a horn on it, a windshield, paint it blue, get it permitted through the city, et cetera, et cetera. There's even in Webster Groves, if you'd like to get a golf cart permit, you bring your golf cart into the police department, or the police department comes to your house and says, okay, do you have the proper brakes, the proper lights? And if so, that's great. Here's your sticker. We'll put it on your little golf cart, and that's your permit to drive it around. You've passed all of our inspections, so. Yes.
I liked, and I think this is kind of like you whittle away until you have, a beautiful statue in terms of getting through some of these conflicting, I agree, I did read the ordinances.
Oh, yeah.
But I particularly liked some of what Clayton said, and when they said golf carts, as they define them, and I took that to mean kind of unsafe low-speed vehicles are not allowed. But low-speed vehicles as defined under the applicable section of the CFR, those are allowed in circumstances. And I kind of liked how they piggybacked off of all of the safety regulations that I think are in the CFR, which would include, not limited to, lights, windshield, insured,
Turn signals,
that there's a seatbelts,
Yes.
and that seemed to be plowed land in
Yes.
terms of this is a safe low speed
Absolutely.
vehicle. So from a threshold, I kind of that set me up the golf cart that you get at the country club is not safe for a road.
Right. Don't drive from the
In fact,
18th hole
maybe
to
we
your
should
home.
break
Yes.
ourselves of the habit of even calling them golf carts and call them low-speed vehicles.
Yes.
So from a threshold safety, I think they should be insured. And I don't know, to make the police department put the onus on them. Or making sure. I don't even know if that's something. I don't have a golf cart or a low-speed vehicle. If that's something that I go to the car dealership and I know I'm buying a low-speed vehicle, and therefore I know I'm buying a vehicle compliant, and how otherwise to certify that may just need some working out. But I like that framework. Two, let's say we are, regardless of how we define it, what are the implications of our main arterials? We've got Brentwood going from north and south, and we've got Manchester east to west.
Right.
And we do not have jurisdiction over those roads. So is it true we can't drive?
The state does, and the state says you can't drive on a county road and you can't drive on a state road, state highway, county highway.
So does that mean that even if we just take a real high watermark on golf carts, that we're never going to be able to cross over those?
No, you can
streets?
cross them. There's specific rules to crossing them too.
It'd be limited to I could
90
cross
degrees.
it.
Yeah, if you're on lawn and you want to cross Brentwood Boulevard, you absolutely can do so at the traffic signal. And let's say there's not a traffic signal somewhere, that's fine. It's the same rules as if you were driving and you just wanted to go straight across. You just have to cross perpendicularly. So you can't come off of Eulalie, go northbound, go a few blocks down Brentwood, and then make a left onto Lawn. You have to go straight across onto Litzinger
Okay.
and keep it perpendicular.
But even if we wanted to allow people to drive on Brentwood in their golf carts, we have no ability.
That's
to
correct.
Make that happen.
That's correct.
They would have to see
The state comes in and says no.
state or the county for that. Do we know? And as far as I guess McKnight, is that a state?
McKnight,
Half ours,
actually,
half
Half
Ladue.
ours and half Ladou's.
it's half. It's half and half. So the northbound lanes are ours, and I want to say that's a county road.
Because they were trying to
South of
shove
Litzinger?
traffic up there when 64.
South of Litzinger, Dan says, is a county road, and the north would be Brentwood.
So, here were my topic, sort of things that, and I don't know if we hash these out tonight, but what is a car we might allow? How do we make sure that people know the implications on our arterial streets? What now will we do with McKnight? If anything, in terms of the part we control. And by the way, the part we don't control isn't going to be, we can't, we have
not even
no power
applicable,
over
right.
that. And then, the extent to which it's allowed on streets, the extent to which they would be allowed on trailways. And I'm
going to question
and I'm
that
not,
one.
I'm not coming down on, I'm saying those were the subtopics I thought needed to be worked through.
Sure. And if you guys noticed on almost all of them, if not all of the ordinances and examples, I didn't see one where they allowed golf carts or slow-moving vehicles on trails, park trails, sidewalks, pedestrian ways.
I noticed that in the Clayton ordinance too.
Yes.
One of them does. I went through that really carefully.
Which one was that?
And I think it's Eureka. Lets them on trails.
Okay.
Limited.
And I ride an e-bike, and I do not want to meet a golf cart on a trail. My bike's heavy. It
Oh,
doesn't
sure.
react as fast. And at Creve Coeur Lake Park, where people can rent those paddle things, that takes up the whole trail.
Yeah, it does.
And it's dangerous if you try to go around them. So,
Yeah.
yes, no trails.
We could start with the cart. Let's start with the cart. Now, we want to say, if it comes off a golf course, we don't want it on our roads. And then you've got the LSV vehicles have to meet this National Highway Traffic Safety Administration standards.
To be driven on a public road, basically.
To that point, is that what the first A, B, and C sections of section 340.230 of Clayton are meant to convey? The fact that if it's a golf cart, if you're calling it a golf cart, if it's coming from a golf course, prohibited.
That's how
Now
I
let's
read
tell
it.
you what is allowed.
Allowed.
We're calling them a whole different category of vehicle.
Yeah. And it's basically just because it's equipped to meet those standards.
Right.
You get it off of, even if you went down here to Dean Team off of Manchester.
Right.
Those are recreational. Those, originally when people started buying those, it was for their land, when they had land, and you took it and you drove it on your private land. Well, that's completely acceptable. Nobody has any jurisdiction over what you do on your own land. But if the city isn't entertaining an ordinance for this, then absolutely, you get to say what is and is not.
Yeah, so I mean, to build on your point, I like the approach Clayton took insofar as being specific about the definition of what we're talking about in the first place. In other words, not letting you just lump in golf carts with low-speed vehicles and whatever, but being very intentional in the first 3 paragraphs to say, look, we're not talking about golf carts. We're talking about a very
Lawnmower,
specific,
I,
right,
like,
something you
really
converted in
cool.
your garage, right, exactly.
Like,
Or sofa with a motor.
Right. But I think that's relevant to
Absolutely.
being clear.
Yeah. I would tend to agree, just from a professional standpoint. I think that they had the most comprehensive kind of layout, and especially, like you said, Sonny, in terms of, this path has already been traveled.
Yeah.
Here are the regulations that we can go by and follow, and it's extremely easy then to decide as a city what
I
to
think it's
do
also
from there.
convenient that our own city attorney wrote it. Clayton style.
Is that right?
Interesting, interesting.
I think he did. So, might be able to chime in.
maybe it was that I recognized the writing style.
You could,
That
you could.
spoke to me.
I think he may have. Okay, so have we narrowed down what a cart is then?
I mean, I don't know necessarily, if you can cheat off one's homework and get ahead, let's do it. But I liked how Clayton framed it.
Okay.
Me too.
And I thought I liked also how they said, they just called it out even more specifically, like section, 334.026, be equipped with headlamps, front and rear turn signals, stop lamps,
Exactly.
reflect, I'm not gonna read it all, but I liked how they were describing what it is, so there's no ambiguity there. If we're gonna entertain allowing them on our streets. And, needing insurance, but I think probably what may, and maybe there really isn't, then the extent to which where we allow them.
Well, what about the driver then?
I think they should be licensed. I
Licensed
don't,
in 16, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's
And
all part
with
of it,
proof
that's
of
all.
insurance.
yeah, all these people, because you could kill someone with a low-speed vehicle, no doubt.
Or you could be operating one and you're well underage and you have no idea what you're doing and kill yourself, and it's
Yeah, I think
Completely
they should
dangerous.
have a driver's license and have insurance.
So we like the way Clayton describes a cart. We want the driver to be 16 and licensed
Yeah, I liked all of that.
and insured.
And they had penalties.
Yeah, and the registration too. I
I can't recall what limitations they had in terms of where they're allowed, but
Right, insofar as that, I mean, to me, McKnight Road is problematic. I mean, Hanley's out because of the nature of the road. Brentwood Boulevard's out, Manchester Road's out. McKnight, north of Litzinger, could potentially be in, but to me, that just seems problematic. It really does.
do we know offhand?
Especially when you're dealing with Ladue on the other side of the street.
What Ladou's position is on that? I mean,
I don't know.
to even, it seems like we ought to do, I can't say I remember if Ladue was even included in this.
I honestly don't remember. I think I read about 10.
Um,
I don't remember if Ladue was in there.
What is the county park regulation? If
They're
one
not
of the golf
allowed.
carts here tried to get over to Tillis,
They're not allowed in
Eric's
county
got a
parks.
memo in there, and it tells, it
it says
shows.
not. So,
Yeah.
so there's really not a big need for them to be on McKnight because they're not going anywhere in that direction.
Yeah, and to your point about the danger that they pose, it seems like it's the opposite danger, but no less important danger that they pose on trailways. I mean, in other words, where they could be slowing down vehicular traffic if they're on a street that's being well traveled. The opposite is true. They're going to be in the way of people who are trying to walk their dogs. Yeah, strollers, exactly, all that kind of stuff.
Well, when you think of the money we're spending on trailways and getting grants for people to get off their butts and go walk,
I agree, yeah, I was
why
just-
get in a golf
I
cart
was,
and
I
go?
was like Jackson Pollocking, I was making the broad strokes. Like I don't think they. I mean, I don't think they should be on our $80 million trail system. Like,
Much as it might be an appeal to the Brentwood Police Department, I do not want to see a golf cart chase or a low-speed vehicle chase in the trail system of Brentwood bound.
You say that now, but
Yeah, I know,
when you
I
see a
know.
video of one of those.
That's right. I'll be the first one clicking.
I do have a concern with Clayton's and a couple others in that they don't limit the number of people. And I think there ought to be, if there are going to be kids in the back, they ought to be seat belted in. They shouldn't be hanging on something in the back as dad drives around town.
One of those
That is
ordinances
covered.
does.
It's covered under H. It's covered under 3H.
Okay, they did. I thought I saw it.
Letter I, and it has to do with 49 CFR Code of Federal Regulations.
I don't have a letter I. Where are you?
It's on page 2 of 3, right before section 340.
Oh, type 1 or type 2 seat belt, but it doesn't say they have to have
For
them
each
on.
designated seating position.
They have to
so that-
wear them.
yeah, I don't think.
Well,
you're
right,
allowed
but
to
it also means,
exceed, like,
right, but doesn't
the
that also
belts.
mean that you can't have 6 people when you only have 4 seatbelts?
Yeah, I mean you
That's
can't.
And actually, the amount of seats that are appropriate too. So if you buy a golf cart that seats 6, you can't have a 7 and an 8 hanging off the back.
Right.
One of those ordinances does spell that out. If there's
Right.
not a seat for your butt, then you shouldn't be riding that way.
It's like we grew up riding the back of pickup trucks and said it was fine.
That's so
and now
dangerous.
people go, oh, no, you can't do that.
I mean, it's fun.
All right.
One of the things that we were discussing was that, as you look at the opening of the Brentwood Bound complex and then the tunnel, there's pretty good opportunity for folks in Brentwood to get in their
Low-speed vehicle.
Let's speak vehicle. Yeah.
playground, so probably at a good time to.
But not allowing it, yeah. Yeah.
Well, I think even in Eric's thing, it was something about the GRG.
Won't allow it.
Yeah, the GRG. Well, they have to defer, but they don't want it.
Yeah.
No, we just say we don't want it.
So I mean,
I agree with that, absolutely. Yeah.
Well, do we want to maybe direct staff to have our city attorney draft something similar to the Clayton ordinances and bring it back to us?
yeah, I think
Yes.
I liked what I saw, and I think that we should call out the, McKnight, whether maybe we should line up to Ladue. I think we should know what we do about McKnight Road. How do we feel about Litzinger?
Right, and it seems to me
that seems big enough in order to.
and it seems to me the section is 3.340.250. C looks like it could be altered or added to be more specific along the lines of what both you and Kathy have been talking about in terms of streets prohibited, types of
trail systems
trails prohibited,
sidewalks,
things
like,
exactly. And you could easily, I think, modify it.
so yeah, that would.
Say, this you can cross Litzinger, you can cross, but you can't drive on sidewalks. You can't drive on trailways. You
And
can't
you
drive
could
on.
be on Litzinger. right?
Well, I mean, 35, it would depend, I guess, if you're,
Can you drive 40 miles an hour on
Technically, you
Litzinger?
could, because it's posted lower than 35, but I don't think I'd like
I
to
didn't
be
drill in
behind
with
one
that.
on Litzinger.
Which road was that? I'm sorry.
Litzinger, that
Litzinger.
seemed that would be a popular road to use if I don't remember
Probably.
I remember doing this, but like.
You're gonna be the back of a pickup truck.
I'm gonna be in the back of the pickup truck. I've driven an old fire truck through there. Like, I mean, you know, what should we do? Is that shoulder big enough? I mean, do we need to think, Litzinger is at 35 miles an hour? I mean, cause right, they said,
Why can't we put that in an exception?
yeah, I don't know, but that'd be the kind of thing
That would be up to you guys to nail it down and discuss it, talk it out, and say, hey, here's what we agree on for all these.
That's what I'm thinking. If it
Yeah.
comes back here, then.
maybe a draft that we can tweak. I just can't, I'm not
Yeah.
thinking of all the variables.
No, I ain't gonna. All right,
Oh.
well, anybody want to second that motion?
I'll second that motion.
Excuse me, Chief?
A permitting process,
Yeah, it's,
inspection of the vehicle, you know, kind of labor intensive. There's pretty many golf carts running around now, so.
I've never.
Yeah.
I'm not-
And
can't say
honestly,
that
I don't see, the ones I've seen, I don't know they're gonna fit this criteria that headlights, seatbelts, things like that.
I'd-
Most of these things don't have that.
I just think that's that's safe. You're
It's
riding on a
common, yeah,
street.
I agree.
Yeah, it's, doesn't mean you couldn't add it, I guess, I don't know, it's that specific on what.
So, your point about the inspection, you could add it as a section under that 340.280, we could add it as a section there and add to the title of that section to say title and registration and inspection.
I think if you're gonna do that, you almost have to do an inspection.
Yeah, just require
And
everybody,
it's a sticker. I mean, I was
yeah.
like,
Brentwood
That's
Police
the
Department would
example what
issue,
Webster
a
had.
sticker similar to the tab you get on your license.
I would be interested too to hear what the city attorney has to say about that inspection process and who's doing the inspection process. Aside from saying, yeah, you have seatbelts,
Yeah.
I'm not really qualified to say if they're installed
And you
properly.
could,
can we encourage, create a way that's not a constitutional violation to have Dobbs do it and pay, like, versus, I don't.
we could have the city, we could have this police department do it and you guys could use that to start raising money for a canine patrol.
And we've
like,
come full
to
circle.
be They give you one more thing to do. I mean,
And I know the fire department does fit helmets for kids, but they're not volunteering to come do all the inspections here, are they?
What do you know about golf
I
carts?
feel like this might be in your wheelhouse.
so,
I guess,
In terms of enforcement too, just to kind of top off what the chief said about the inspections, if we did have like a sticker permit, it'd be extremely easy for our officers to identify.
At a distance, right.
yeah.
Absolutely. We wouldn't have to bother folks by pulling them over and checking and,
Right,
you know, when they've done everything that they've done to
right.
get it registered the
Yeah,
right way.
I'd be in
Color every
agreement
year.
with some sort of inspection sticker. I'm just not sure you guys should be the one doing the inspection, but I don't
I
have
mean,
an
I will,
answer.
but
Looks all right to me.
like a lot of work, but
Well, if they can't drive the low-speed vehicle to the police station for the inspection, then there's something wrong right there.
Right. That's the first
That's
question of
number
your
one.
test. Could
You
you
have to
get
come to
here?
us.
Right, exactly.
without breaking law, yeah.
Right.
well, Major Hawkins, do you have enough direction from us as far as coming back with some type of ordinance that we could kind of tweak at the next
Absolutely.
meeting?
Absolutely,
Okay,
yes.
all right.
Any other questions for us on that? All right, will do. Thank you so much.
Okay. Move on to item B, which is 2646 High School, and that was removing some no parking signs. Dan, I think that's you. And I think, Dan, last meeting, we'd kind of sent you back to kind of reevaluate taking those no parking signs on the east side of High School all the way up to Madge from Manchester, but you had some findings there.
Yes, whenever I spoke with the two residents in that first block, they actually did not agree and didn't really prefer that we extend it all the way up to Powell, for the reason being of sight distance. So they said, you know, cars coming off of Manchester Road, they're heading northbound typically or at a higher rate of speed than elsewhere in the city. And if you're trying to back out, they said in the morning, and you've got cars that are already parked in the street, it'll make it more difficult for them to, if they're wanting to go northbound back, up and then go northbound. So it'll create sight distance issues. Plus, they said that, they've lived there for years and they've always been able to park in their driveway. And if you allow people to park in the street, well, what if the vehicle's parked partly over their driveway? It makes it more arduous for them to get in and out, trying to go around the bumper of a vehicle. So they don't mind the person at the southern end, just north of Carl's, getting their way, but they'd like the rest of it to remain unchanged.
Well, that's good, we got their feedback. So I guess a motion to go to the full board is what you need?
Correct, yeah, to amend 3A, the schedule 3A for no parking at any time. We can put it in there the way it's written up now, which would be 200 feet from the intersection there, or actually the intersection of the north side of Manchester and High School, that north fork. We would no longer have no parking at any time on the east side, but on the west side. So that would free it up for that first house, and we would change the signs, and we'll put everything in there. We'll have Kevin look at it.
No, I would make that motion.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, move on to item C. This is you again, Dan. I think you brought this before Public Works, so.
Correct.
And they were
Yeah, I
all-
wanted to bring it up since it's also safety related, and I would need a motion, since there's an agreement related to this, to take to the full board back to the full board on April 4th. So what this is Bridgeport, White, Rosalie, that's the MSD Sewer Project that Fred Luth and Sons is currently working on. They've done some work here at City Hall, put in a manhole. They're going to be running pipes through the alley all the way up past the Starbucks. And White Avenue, I included the plans in your packet. They're separating the sewer. So right now there's a combined sewer, so both sanitary and storm are in one pipe, and they'll put two separate systems in. But what that means is, there's gonna be a bunch of work right by the Starbucks. There'll be work on the south side of White going about mid-block on White, and White Avenue is a dead-end road. So what they proposed, they were really thinking outside the box, was to, the very last house on the south side of White Avenue, that they would redo their driveway, grade down the slope, and then connect the dead end of White Avenue to Swim Club. And what that would allow them to do is trucks making deliveries, dropping off rock, whatever they're doing, they would come in obviously off Brentwood Boulevard, but then they would exit onto Swim Club. So it'd be unidirectional. You don't have trucks necessarily waiting for another truck to pass it up. And they said that they would allow the residents to use it too. So during construction hours, they would remove these temporary barricades that would be placed at this little access drive. And if you're wanting to go to work and not have to compete with vehicles exiting the Starbucks, you could just exit out in the Swim Club, turn, onto Rosalie, or continue on Mary Avenue, or whatever you want to do. So I know we've passed this around internally. I know fire and police have looked at it. They didn't see any issues with it. Parks was okay with it. There could be a couple city-owned trees near the trail system that get removed, but they'll be compensated for that loss. And I know I sent this to the city attorney, so this was the original draft. Kevin, of course, changed the wording and made better clarifications. So that would be the one that we would bring to the full board, but the gist of it's still the same.
I make a motion in support of the improvements described and request this be advanced to the full Board of Aldermen for approval.
Second.
Any other questions? All in favor?
The fact that the homeowner is going to get a improved driveway, and our path there is going to look much better than it does at the present.
Totally agree.
Right, and the path, the slope will be flattened, so, if you're walking on it now and you're walking up the hill to get to White, that's a pretty steep grade. That's gonna be lowered and kept lowered. And then they'll put back permanent asphalt, and then they'll redo the trail itself that runs parallel to Swim Club.
Win-win.
And they'll put the curb back, because they're gonna have to do a curb cut to make it flat enough that a truck can exit, but then they'll put the curb back when they're done.
Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All right, thank you, Dan.
Thanks.
Move on to new business, and I guess we've got a patient transportation policy change.
Yes, I'm presenting a couple policies to request of BOLA. I questioned the process on this just because they're new practice for our personnel. ambulance transport policy, this is important. We have one ambulance, so trying to provide that service at all times to our residents is a primary concern. Also, where we transport the patients to and the time frame that we do it. We don't want to be gone too long. We're blessed. We are very blessed. And the list of hospitals that are there, these are our top hospitals that provide the top care in St. Louis, are close. It's the occasional call where people request to go places that are greater than 20 miles away. So we're just trying to address that. We're trying to give documentation to back up our folks making decisions out in the field when they're faced with these situations. We have exceptions listed. The time critical diagnosis care, TCD, that is being taken up at the state legislature currently. It has tremendous momentum. So we believe this year that will be signed into law, that time critical diagnosis will supersede any decisions that we have. So if someone's having a heart attack, we have to go to the closest hospital that can treat that heart attack. And this policy addresses that.
Hospital might that be? Is that St. Mary? I'm just curious.
Correct. So St. Mary's, Mercy,
For a friend.
Missouri Baptist, yeah, yes.
But in the past, these approved hospitals, we were transporting to those hospitals.
No, not all. Let me see here. I don't have my glasses. Mercy South Hospital is one that sticks out. We did not regularly transport down to that facility. It is, and that's the furthest one.
About St. Clair too.
Correct. St. Clair, we did have the ability to, because they moved from Kirkwood area, and we had a lot of patients we transported there. We just do it so few, so few.
I make a motion that the city of Brentwood adopt this ambulance policy.
Second.
Okay, any other questions? No? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, ride-along policy. I
Okay.
think this is you also, Chief.
Correct. So currently, we have no ride-along program. The intent of this policy is to start a training with East Central dispatchers. They have submitted a formal request to me to allow their dispatchers to ride with us on occasion for training experiences. I think this is a tremendous opportunity. This is step one. My vision in the coming months, perhaps year, is we explore paramedic students doing ride-alongs on our ambulance. It's a tremendous recruiting tool that we do not utilize. And so this is step one. That's a vision, but I think this is important. Number one, education on both ends and just relationship building.
I have one question. So did you show this proposed policy to ECDC?
Yes.
And they had no objection?
No, they are eager to do this.
I would make a motion that we send this to the full Board of Aldermen with recommendation for adoption.
Second.
Other questions? All in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Move on to citizen comment. Kelly, because we have nobody here, so anybody out there?
No one with their hand raised.
Unless there's somebody with any other business.
New way, right?
I think we're out of here.
All right.
Adjourned.
We are adjourned.
Thanks, everybody.